Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really dramatic story from the Bible. It's all about quiet courage in the middle of absolute chaos, and it's a powerful look at how God's purpose keeps moving forward even when it seems like evil is totally won. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the whole story really hinges on this one pivotal moment. It's from 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 11. It says, "But Jehosheba stole him away from among the royal princes who were about to be murdered. She hid the child from Athaliah so she could not kill him." Just think about that. This one single act of quiet defiance, well, it would change the entire course of history.
I mean, it's a question we all face, isn't it? You look at the world and sometimes it just feels overwhelming. Well, this story from the Bible gives a really powerful answer. It shows us that even when darkness seems to have the upper hand, God's plan is always at work, usually in ways we just can't see yet.
So to really get why this moment is such a huge deal, we've got to set the stage a little. We have to understand what was going on, because the kingdom of Judah was in complete turmoil, and a promise from God himself was hanging by a thread.
Yeah, the leadership in Judah was in a total downward spiral. After King Ahaziah's really short and wicked reign came to a sudden end, he was killed as part of God's judgment, the kingdom was left wide open, totally vulnerable. There was a huge power vacuum, and chaos was starting to brew.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just any royal family. This was the line of David. This was the specific family line that God had promised in a covenant to preserve forever. So the stakes here, they couldn't possibly be higher. An attack on this family wasn't just politics. It was a direct assault on the promise of God himself.
So the king is dead, and his mother, the ambitious queen Athaliah, she sees her chance, and instead of mourning her son, she decides to take power for herself in the most ruthless way you can imagine.
She doesn't hesitate. Her move is just swift and absolutely brutal. To make sure her throne was secure, to get rid of any and all rivals, she decides to murder every single potential heir. And we're not talking about distant cousins here. These were her own grandchildren. It was a complete and total purge.
But right here, in this moment of absolute darkness, as the queen's horrific plan is unfolding, one person chooses to act. And this is the critical turning point of the entire story. And what you have here is this incredible contrast, right? You've got these two royal women. On one side, you have Athaliah, using all her public power for destruction, trying to literally end God's promise. And on the other, you have Jehosheba, using her quiet, hidden courage to protect and preserve that very same promise.
Look, Jehosheba didn't have some grand strategy or an army. Her actions were simple. They were deliberate, and they were so incredibly risky. Let's just walk through it. She identifies the infant Joash. She seizes the moment, stealing him and his nurse away. She secures them in a private room, and then she hides him in the one place Athaliah would never think to look, the temple, the house of God. She just did the next right thing.
So with that one brave act, Jehosheba basically creates this hidden sanctuary, a space where God's plan could continue to unfold right under the nose of the wicked queen.
And think about this. For 6 long years, Athaliah is sitting on the throne. She thinks she's won. She believes she completely wiped out the line of David. But the whole time, God was protecting and preparing the rightful king in the safety of the temple. His purpose was hidden, sure, but it was nowhere near defeated.
Okay, so what does all this mean for us right now? Why does this story matter today? Well, it highlights 2 really powerful lessons about faith that are just as relevant for us as they were back then.
I think we all wonder this sometimes, don't we? Can my small choices, the things that feel so insignificant, can they really make a difference in a world with such huge problems? Jehosheba's story gives us a loud and clear answer.
So lesson number 1 is that God can, and he absolutely does, use one single act of courage. Your one act of faith, that one moment of obedience when it feels risky or you're scared, that might be the very thing God uses to preserve his purpose in your family, in your community, maybe even in a nation. Never, ever underestimate your influence.
And this brings us to the other huge question this story tackles. You know, when we look around and we see confusion and injustice, and it just feels like evil is winning, it is so easy to lose hope and start to wonder if God is even in control anymore.
And here's the answer. Lesson number 2, God always protects his purpose. This story is just this powerful reminder that no human evil, no chaotic situation is strong enough to stop God's promises.
He is always working behind the scenes, protecting and preserving things we can't see. Yet,
So all of this incredible story of survival and terror and faith, it all builds to one final ultimate takeaway. It's the one big idea that holds this whole thing together.
And it's really as simple as this. God's purpose is unstoppable. That's the final word. Despite the murderous plot, despite the reign of terror, despite all those years of wicked rule, God's promise was protected. All because of one woman's courage, and it ultimately prevailed. Athaliah's plan failed because God's purpose is, and always will be, unstoppable.
so I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In the quiet, hidden places of your own life, what promise is God protecting in secret for you, just waiting for the right moment to be revealed? Thanks for joining this explainer.